warm welcome. You're watching News 18 Global. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. Let's begin with our top focus on US. Now, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has denied his involvement in a letter that was signed by 51 former intelligence officials back in October 2020. Remember, it was speculated that this letter was in fact fronted by Antony Blinken. The letter was aimed to discredit the Hunter Biden laptop story, which was also linked to a supposed Russian disinformation campaign. The laptop's content included revelations about potential illegal activities involving the US president's son, Hunter Biden, ranging from parties with prostitutes to business deals that traded cash or for access to Joe Biden during his time as Barack Obama's vice president. He said that it wasn't his idea and that he did not ask for it. That's what Antony Blinken had to say. Meanwhile, the House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan and House Intelligence Head Mike Turner have requested information from the Secretary of State Antony Blinken after new testimony that reveals his ties to a statement that, of course, falsely claimed reports about Hunter Biden's laptop were Russian disinformation. Let me also quote what Antony Blinken has said in an interview to Fox News. He says that with regards to that letter, it wasn't my idea, didn't ask for it, didn't solicit it. And I think the testimony that the former Deputy Director of the CIA, Mike Morrell, put forward only confirms that. So remember, Mike Morrell's testimony has been a sharp contradiction to what Antony Blinken has said in this interview. Let's try and delve deeper into this entire controversy and also try and assess what Antony Blinken is trying to hint at. And for that, let me quickly bring in my guests. I'm joined in by Christina Carrica-Haley, who is a Democrat strategist, joining me live from LA. Orlando Sanchez, a Republican strategist, joining me live from Houston. Many thanks to both of you, Christina and Orlando, for joining in. Orlando, if I could bring you in first, how do you weigh in on what Blinken's saying? Of course, it's a denial. Is this also now passing the buck on to Joe Biden?
Well, it could be. The bigger problem that the secretary has, of course, is that during the confirmation hearings for the position of Secretary of State, he denied ever having an email exchange with Hunter Biden. It's come to light that there is communications via email between the secretary and Hunter Biden. And the problem for the secretary is lying to Congress is a felony. So he has some issues to address with regard to the 51 intelligence agents saying, he requested it. It's a he said, she said, and we won't really know the bottom of it unless somebody under oath testifies that, in fact, the secretary did request.
Orlando, I am actually going to delve deeper into those emails. But right now, what I want to, in fact, build on is what Blinken has, in fact, said in that interview. Christina, is it not dodgy when Secretary Blinken says that Morrell has confirmed Blinken's stance, when in reality Morrell said that Blinken was the one behind the public statement signed by intelligence officials?
Yeah, I think it's very important to acknowledge that Democrats throughout the Trump administration really called for transparency and wanted to make sure that nobody was lying under oath. So I think it's important for the Democratic Party, the president and his team to really kind of hold steadfast here. Nobody should be lying under oath. There also is nothing inappropriate with having a relationship with the president's son. However, as we start to look into these things, it does get a bit dodgy, as you said. And I do think that, Blinken is maybe taking the testimony from Morrell and putting a little bit of a rose-colored glasses on it when he's replying to say that he was exonerated. I think there's a lot more to look into, and hopefully, by Democrats and Republicans working together, they get to the bottom of it was just hopefully a really stupid mistake, to put it as unintelligently as possible, and that if there was an offense made and lying under oath, then it needs to be dealt with accordingly.
Right. Orlando, Republican Senator Ron Johnson has said that Secretary Blinken lied bold-faced under oath to Congress about never emailing Hunter Biden, which has already been proven as a lie after the trove of emails that you were also referring to. What does Blinken's blatant dishonesty now mean, not just for Blinken, for the Biden investigation to just that too before 2024?
Well, I mean, I think it throws a tremendous curve, a bump in the road for the reelection of the president. The president does not need those distractions. No candidate for the highest public office in the land needs a member of his or her administration under investigation and questionable. The Secretary of State of the United States is a very powerful position dealing with a lot of global conflicts. And the last thing Mr. Blinken needs is an investigation of a potential criminal lying to the U.S. Congress. And certainly it's the last thing President Biden needs or wants as he launches his reelection bid.
Right. If I could bring in Christina on that. Christina, on that note, how do you assess this for Joe Biden and the entire investigation now panning out in the race to 2024?
You know, it's interesting. I think there's something that a lot of Democrats should study and learn from the Trump administration. There was a difference in approach to the public when there were maybe missteps or mistakes made under the Trump administration, and especially the president himself owning a lot of times, saying exactly what he did that maybe, you know, in past political history was frowned upon or not seen as okay, and explain why. And oftentimes, even if people didn't agree with it, they went with it. And I think that this is a really important turning point for Democrats of how are we going to engage with the public? At the end of the day, all politicians are human. There are going to be mistakes made, both sides of the aisle, et cetera. And so how do you move forward and kind of address it with the humans? And in a time where there's unprecedented international conflicts going on, not only is there a presidential election, which could say a lot for this, and especially the fact that the country of Russia that has both ties in questionable ways to not only Hunter Biden, but also the former president and his family as well, who will likely be running against the president. I think the stakes are as high as possible right now, and it will really, really show the American people how the Democratic Party can handle conflict and situation at home while being sure to be the leader that we always want to be on the world front as well.
Right. Orlando, let's also talk about Blinken getting subpoenaed, because, you know, we've heard Ron Johnson come on record and saying that I would want to subpoena Blinken and his wife if they even want to prove their innocence. But the Democrats will not help me in doing that. How significant is the Democrat role right now?
Well, it's very significant. And of course, if they don't allow the secretary to come testify under oath, it seems that the Democrats on the committee are hiding something or not wanting something to come to light, which can be very dangerous. This whole situation has gotten completely out of control in Washington, D.C. You know, with the presidents and former presidents and presidents' family benefiting financially from on both sides of the aisle from foreign relationships. Are they illegal? Probably not. Are they unethical? Probably yes. But the problem is when you start to hide them and then you start to lie about those. That's when you get in trouble. And it appears that the former secretary was also known that was communicating with Hunter Biden through his spouse. Her emails are replete with communications between the president's son and herself.
Right. Christina, the need for Democrat support over here, because let's not forget that Blinken cannot be subpoenaed till there's ample Democrat support.
Yes, no, and I spoke with two Democratic officers who are on the committee. There hasn't been an official announcement or meeting based on subpoenaing, et cetera. So I'm sure there is pushback from the Democratic Party, but I know it hasn't been officially made that they will not subpoena or stop a subpoena on the Senate side. So I think, you know, we'll see in the coming days, most likely in the coming day or two, whether or not that's going to happen. And I do think that Democrats, you know, will only stand to gain from making sure that they're holding their own party accountable as they are across the aisle. And I think it's very important to acknowledge what Orlando was saying too. In this realm of government affairs, having been a lobbyist for years myself as well, there's a lot of gray areas on purpose. And unfortunately, those gray areas can be exploited. But oftentimes, even the gray areas, while nothing illegal, people is also in poor taste. So there's many different layers to this, and whether or not a law was broken is one thing, but it's also how our country is going to continue to move forward based on, to the fact of relationships and former current presidents and family members and elected officials benefiting from foreign affairs.
Right.
It's something our country needs to look at, and unfortunately, I don't think we'll get there anytime soon.
Orlando, it's interesting that Christina highlighted this entire matter being in a gray area as of now. The House Oversight Committee has already revealed through financial records that members of the Biden family received more than $1 million in payments from accounts related to their business associate and even Chinese business ventures in 2017, and I mean the Biden. At the same time, an IRS whistleblower has also claimed that Hunter Biden investigation is being mishandled with clear conflicts of interest. Can the White House still insist on no political interference?
Well, look, I mean, these are different agencies. The IRS has the investigative power. They can certainly get to the bottom of this fairly quickly. But look, this has been going on far too long, and Christina's right. There's a lot of gray area, and Congress can fix this if they want to. They can pass legislation, they can pass statutes that prohibit this sort of activity. The Clintons, under their foundation, as we all know, well documented, generated millions of dollars for the foundation. Mr. Kushner, the son-in-law of the former president, now has benefited in a private equity fund from Middle Eastern money. And now we have Hunter Biden and, quite frankly, several of the Biden family obviously engaged in business transactions with Russia and others. Again, as Christina pointed out, perhaps not illegal, but the fact of the matter is that you're not transparent when Congress inquires, and particularly for the secretary who was being nominated by the president, according to the committee, has lied. And so that's the problem, is when you either avoid taxes or you, as he said, engage in a bald-faced lie.
End with your thoughts. The question that Republicans want to get to is whether President Biden, then Vice President Biden, materially altered foreign policy to benefit his son. Will the Hunter Biden saga now spell trouble for Joe Biden, even if there is no direct link established so far?
I think it should be welcomed by the Democratic Party in hopes that there wasn't. I mean, if there was something done nefariously, then that should also be held accountable. And as a Democrat, I would want to see that happen. And so I think it would only benefit the Democrats to get to the bottom of it and show it. Unfortunately, the one thing that this country seems to be equal on across the board is the fact that former presidents, no matter what party, have been involved in areas or benefited from their former office. Now, it makes sense, right? You were at one time the president of the United States. You hold a lot of power and have a very strong network. However, again, we've got to look into this and figure this out. Under the Trump administration, we had a lot of dealings with family members, same under, as Orlando mentioned, the Clinton Foundation. So, hopefully this is something that the Democrats will and Republicans, bipartisanly will look into, get to the bottom of, no matter what, and hopefully moving forward, set up some steps that can safeguard this country. Because if the only thing we can agree on is that everybody's a little corrupt or has their hands somewhere, I don't think we're on the right path. And hopefully we can get back to really working on both domestic and international issues that are affecting the general public.
I'm glad you call a spade, Christina. I've always appreciated that about you. On that note, many thanks to you, Christina and Orlando, for participating in this very democratic discussion.